All right, so it's finally time. The OnePlus 13 has made its way to North America. Some things are very similar to the OnePlus 12, but other things are slightly different, slightly better, and we're going to get into all that here in this video. But first, let's just start with the basics like the price. The base model starts at $899 US, that's 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. The higher tier model comes in at $999, and that's 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. Something to keep in mind, the color options do vary depending on the option you choose. So with the base model, it only comes in the black Eclipse color, which actually might have been my preferred color. It's got a very stealth look to it, which I think is nice. And then the higher tier model is available in all three colors. So that's the black Eclipse, the Midnight Ocean, and the Arctic Dawn, which is the white color that you'll see here in this video. Now, if you go with the blue Midnight Ocean color, instead of a matte finish like the other two, it actually has a vegan leather finish, which is pretty interesting. So definitely some things to keep in mind when you're making your decision. So when it comes to the design, very similar to the OnePlus 12, but there are some subtle changes. The 13 is actually a tad smaller and lighter. One thing that stands out is the size of the camera module. It's definitely more exaggerated on the 12, as you can see. And then if you pay attention to the edges, you can also see the 13 is slightly shorter. The screen size and all that is still the same, but they've managed to slightly reduce the size of the body. Aside from that, the main difference is that you now have flat edges around the perimeter. Last year when I reviewed the 12, the first thing I noticed was just how slick and slippery the phone is, and the curved edges definitely factor into that. On the 13, you have the same matte finish on the back, which is pretty slick. However, the flat edges make it easier to grip and handle. So if you're somebody that prefers to go without a case, I feel like that's going to be easier to do with the 13 compared to the 12. Now with the 13, those flat edges give it a similar look and feel to some of the other flagships out there, like the iPhone and the Pixel 9. Like I said, it does make it easier to handle in general, but if you do want to invest in a case, they've got some lightweight MagSafe cases available, like this wood grain case, which by the way is made from real wood. That way, if you're coming from an iPhone, maybe you have a lot of MagSafe accessories, you don't have to give up that functionality. Now, shifting our focus to the front of the 13, it features a quad curved glass that blends seamlessly into those flat edges, and the glass features a ceramic guard to help protect against drops and scratches. At the end of the day, it is still glass, and as we know, glass can break, but one cool thing about that ceramic guard, even if you develop a crack in the screen, the ceramic guard can help limit the growth of the crack, which could potentially buy you some time before needing to repair it. The overall display is 6.82 inches, same as before. It's a 120 Hz Pro XDR display with a peak brightness of 1600 nits, which means you're perfectly fine indoors or outdoors, even in bright sunny conditions. You can see how it stacks up against the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Both are at 100%, and it does look like the 13 is slightly brighter. Compared to the S24 Ultra, again, both at 100%, it seems like they're pretty even. I wouldn't say one looks brighter than the other. The Pixel 9 Pro XL was the only one that I would say definitively outperformed the 13 in terms of peak brightness. Now, as far as biometric security, you've got face unlock and you have an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. It's fast, it's accurate, and it actually works even if your hands are wet. And speaking of being wet, you also have the latest version of Aqua Touch. If you've ever tried to use a phone in the shower or at the beach, by a pool, you know how challenging it is to navigate a touchscreen when there's water involved. I'm not sure how they do it, but with this Aqua Touch technology, you can accurately navigate the phone even when drops of water are present. Again, some of us like to take our phones in the shower, whether it's for music or just responding to messages, and this makes it a lot easier to do that. There's also a dedicated glove mode, which is great for this time of year, wintertime. You can easily use the display while wearing wool or sheepskin gloves. Something else to keep in mind with the 13 is durability. We talked about the ceramic guard for the glass, but we also got to talk about the IP68 and IP69 certifications. The 13 is one of the most water resistant phones that you can buy. Not only can it withstand up to 1.5 meters of water for up to 30 minutes, it can also withstand high pressure water jets from all 4 directions up to 80 degrees Celsius, which is around 170 degrees Fahrenheit. Apparently, you can run this thing through certain dishwashers and it'll survive. Needless to say, the OnePlus 13 is going to be right at home during all your summertime activities. Now let's go ahead and switch gears and talk about the internals. So this is running Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite chip, which is basically the best they have to offer. This thing is incredibly smooth, it's powerful, it's going to blaze through pretty much whatever you throw at it, from multitasking between apps to video editing to gaming. You're getting flagship experience at the highest level. You pair that up with Oxygen OS 15 and you've got a seamless user experience. And according to OnePlus, they've reduced the amount of bloatware, which leads to an additional 5 gigs of storage. So that means fewer pre-installed apps that you'll probably never touch or even use. And then there's the battery life. So last year with the OnePlus 12, battery life was one of the biggest selling points, at least for me. And with the 13, they've added to it. So instead of a 5400 milliamp hour battery, you now have a 6000 milliamp hour battery, which is usually unheard of outside of large gaming phones. And it's actually the first silicon nanostack battery in North America, which essentially means it has an incredibly high energy density. When it comes to standard use, occasional phone calls, text messages, social media browsing, internet shopping, you can easily get 2 days of use before you'll need to recharge. And when you do need to recharge, it still comes with that 80-watt charging brick that can get you from 1 to 100% in just 36 minutes. And if that's too slow for you, you can buy a separate 100-watt charging brick for even faster speeds. You've still got 50-watt wireless charging if you prefer that route. And there's a new MagSafe wireless charger with a built-in fan, which looks like it would be the perfect setup for the hardcore gamers out there. Now, if you're considering the 13 for gaming, one thing you got to keep in mind is temperature. You are going to get better thermals compared to the OnePlus 12. You've got a total of 14 temperature sensors and 2 vapor chambers that are more efficient at distributing heat. From there, let's go ahead and get into the cameras. This time around, we have 50 megapixels across all 3 cameras, the ultra wide, the wide, and the telephoto. I actually did a complete camera comparison and breakdown between the OnePlus 13, the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and the Pixel 9 Pro XL. So definitely check that out if you want to see how the 3 stack up. But in a nutshell, the 13 takes some very impressive photos and videos. There are some slight improvements over the OnePlus 12, including Dolby Vision HDR across all cameras, including the selfie camera. So right here in this example, you've got some harsh lighting coming from the sun, and with the 13, you have a little more detail and information in the darker areas thanks to that HDR support. With the 12, the footage doesn't look bad, but you can tell the shadows look a bit more faded in comparison. And even if you pay attention to the exposure and just the way my skin looks, it's more pleasing to the eye on the 13. As far as the rear cameras, the video performance is a lot closer since the 12 does support HDR on the rear cameras. But in this example, what stands out to me is the lens flare coming from the sun. You can see it spans across the entire frame, whereas with the 13, it's not even there. And these subtle differences that you notice on video apply to photos as well. Something else you're going to get with the 13 compared to the 12 is better looking telephoto shots. So once you go over a 10 times zoom, the 13 uses an AI processing algorithm to clean up the image, and it works incredibly well when it comes to text. So it actually analyzes individual letters and it predicts what pixels should be there to give you the cleanest looking image. The 13 also uses AI for editing photos. So these days, most flagship phones can remove unwanted objects from a photo. If you happen to take a blurry photo, many phones can unblur the photo. And the 13 has both of these features, by the way. But one AI feature that I've really enjoyed is the reflection eraser. This comes in handy anytime you take a photo through glass. So for example, if you're at a museum and you're looking at a piece of art through the glass, if you take a picture, the 13 can effectively remove any reflections that were captured. And it's kind of scary how well it works. Another feature I've really enjoyed is the option to add detail to an image. And this works great if you have a photo that you want to reframe. Maybe you want to crop in and kind of change the composition. As you know, the more you crop in, the more detail you lose. But with this feature, you can get some of that detail back. So in this example, if you look at the words towards the top of the building, you can really see the difference in the before and after. And then there's the action mode, which is great for fast moving subjects. And this changes the sensor output from 30 frames a second to 60 frames a second. And the amount of photos that you can take back to back to back to back is impressive. It uses something called a dual exposure algorithm to give you minimal motion blur and great clarity. Somehow it captures a short and a long exposure photo at the same time, and it combines them. I'm not sure how it works, but it works. And then when it comes to video stabilization, this is the first phone that I've come across that allows you to use active stabilization with 4K quality. With the iPhone, the limit is 2.8K. With Samsung, it's 1440p. With the Pixel, it's 1080p. And this is something that I covered in that comparison video that I mentioned. So again, definitely make sure you check that out. And then of course, you can't have a new phone without AI productivity features. You've got Circle to Search, which can give you information on pretty much anything that you see. You've got writing tools that can help you format or reword text, whether it's a text message, an email, or just a note. And you also have Gemini built in, ready to go. Now, before we wrap things up, I got to talk about one feature that could really come in handy under certain circumstances, and that's something called Beacon Link. Basically, this is a walkie-talkie feature that uses Bluetooth to communicate without a network signal. So let's say you're hiking in a remote location, there's weak cell phone coverage. If you and another person have OnePlus devices that support this feature, you could still communicate with each other with a range up to 200 meters. Like I said, under the right circumstances, that could be useful. As far as future updates, OnePlus has promised 4 years of software updates and 6 years of security updates, which means this is going to be a powerful device for years to come. Chipset, battery life, charging speed, camera quality, you name it, this phone has it, and it has it at a competitive price point. I'm sure, as you guys know, every time OnePlus releases a new device, they've got sales and offers that you can take advantage of. So make sure you check out the link in the description if you're interested. Aside from that, I hope you guys found this video to be helpful. Do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. Also consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.